All right. Well, it looks like Jeremy has officially shut off our air here, so we only have 46 minutes to live.
Yeah, before the oxygen runs out.
Yeah.
Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, and before we get started, I would just like to clarify something for the people. I am in no way related to or to be confused with the Jacksons or any Jackson 5 member.
Okay, Randy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't seeing the connection, but Peter just laid it out there. Well, I'm co-host Jeremy, who doesn't see connections, apparently. And I was rummaging through the basement, the other day and found my old grade school recorder. You know, those like crappy little flutes?
Mm-hmm. Oh, a recorder. Yeah.
Kind of makes a really generic tone.
I think you hear them on Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, I didn't. Oh.
I think that's what those wind-sounding flutes are, I believe, recorders.
Oh, wow. That just really ruined my whole idea. Because when I dug this up, 10 years ago and spent every waking moment becoming a virtuoso, I intended on bringing it to a new idiom, to jazz fusion or rock or something. Kind of bring it into a new light, but I'm too late.
Maybe you could modernize it, throw in some drum machines, some electronic instruments underneath it.
I might be too late for that even.
I don't know. I think the recorder is a fine instrument. It will find its way in somewhere.
Thank you, Peter, for your encouragement.
We had... that was like the one instrument that was in our house growing up. Like my dad had a recorder or two. So my brother picked that up because he was destined to be a musician, and he got recorder lessons. My mom found a teacher for him. So the recorder is very close to my heart.
All right.
Well, I'm co-host Peter Cook, and I've started a new reissue label. It might not be my first. Maybe I've done a reissue label before, but either way, it has to be a new one. We're starting brand new. I'm calling it Strictly Commercial. And the flagship release is going to be a lost but now found session featuring Frank Zappa collaborating with Elton John and Jean-Luc Ponty.
Ooh.
So, the release is going to be called Honky Rats and Hot Chateau.
Oh. Oh.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Uh-huh. Joining us today on I'd Buy That for $1, first-time guest, a DJ and content creator based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Welcome to the program, Jared Teely.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
We are so happy to have you on the program, Jared, because you are a very like-minded internet personality.
Yeah, we have a lot of crossover, I see.
Yeah.
What is it you do on the internet?
Well, I find what I do on the internet is I talk about dollar records.
That was a loaded question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about everything that I do on the internet, but what I do on the internet publicly is I talk about the dollar records that I find. So it's kind of a fun way to explore music that won't cost me a lot of money.
We are familiar with this concept.
Yep.
Well, what dollar record did you bring to us today?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it's great that you have this reissue label happening because I think it falls right in line with the artist
Coming soon.
Yeah, this is Jean-Luc Ponty record. This was an artist that I was seeing all the time in record bins my whole life, and for whatever reason, there was even a little bit of there was more than just a hesitation. There was a fear that I was really going to hate this music. There was just something about this guy's face and some of the artwork that I was seeing. All of it just screamed like, do not touch it. And so I just did. I went most of, the last 30 years where I've been collecting records, just completely avoiding anything that said Jean-Luc Ponty. And I never even looked up the guy or anything, but recently I just felt like I needed to explore more and just step out of my comfort zone. And he's one of those artists that I did that with. What I discovered was something that really kind of blew my mind. It's not the most unusual music. It's not like stuff that I think, I've never heard this kind of thing before, but it really did surprise me how much I enjoyed it. And I think what I was really thinking, I thought it was going to be some really cheesy jazz stuff. And maybe he has stuff that is really cheesy jazz, but what I found here and what I'm suggesting we listen to today is far from that to me.
And which album have we selected today?
We have a 1983 album titled Individual Choice by Jean-Luc Ponty.
And what song should we start with to give him a little taste?
Let's start with the first track on the album. It's called Computer Incantations for World Peace.
All right, we're going to start a little ways in because this one's got a big old setting the mood ass introduction. So
yeah, it takes a while to even get to the instrument I know him to play, the violin.
Yeah, so we're going to cut in a minute and a half or so. So here's Computer Incantations.
I definitely went into this knowing of Jean-Luc Ponty as a violinist, primarily familiar with his work with Frank Zappa, which I'm sure we'll come into play when we get to the bio. But I don't believe I've ever put on one of his solo albums. I definitely did not anticipate the barrage of very staccato synthesizers that I was hit with upon listening to this album. Of course, eventually, yes, his violin came in. It was a little more recognizable as the artist that I knew, but after a while, as I adjusted more, the synths were very fast, and it suddenly occurred to me that if you were to switch them to banjos, it would probably sound like a bluegrass record.
Whoa, like that's actually a really good observation. Yeah. So for me, a song called Computer Incantations for World Peace, and the way it starts off with these like sharp, stabby, arpeggiated synthesizer, it feels like there's such urgency to it. And that is what I think drew me in right away. And then as it kind of, you said, we jumped into this a little bit later, but there was so much synthesizer before we even hear the violin. And then the violin kind of helps to mellow it out in a way. I really loved that.
Yeah, it has that organic quality after all of that computer quality.
The thing I was surprised with is how much a lot of the songs on this album kind of remind me of like a minimalist classical type of sound, like Terry Riley, Steve Reich, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, for sure. This fits right in with the Terry Riley.
Yep, and there's a good reason you're sensing some classicalness to it, but we'll get to that in the bio. One thing pretty interesting about this cut, this song in particular, was inspirational to quite a few electronic music artists and was sampled by Detroit techno pioneers Underground Resistance and also a Baltimore garage house group, the Basement Boys, who also went by those guys, sampled this song, which you can hear like right away how that could fit into like an electronic music sample.
Yeah, I wondered if you were to slow it down, which I was listening on YouTube and unable to slow it down and change the pitch because it doesn't alter the pitch. It just kind of degrades the audio when you slow it down on there. I wondered how it would play slowed down lower tones.
Ooh, I could do that.
Yeah.
I think that if I were going to try to make a beat out of this, I would definitely mess around with the speed. It feels a little fast for like a hip hop song, but maybe perfect for, sort of like a house song or techno, but it doesn't really have like that. It doesn't really have a house. The rhythm to me feels like it's not a very danceable song, so someone would really have to do some engineering to make that happen.
Yeah, Peter, maybe you can have like a sub-label that just does like chopped and screwed remixes of jazz fusion songs.
Please, Peter.
I could always use to make another label.
Yeah.
I got nothing but time over here. Time and money.
Well, Jared gave us a little background on his experience with Jean-Luc. What about you fellas, Sean, Peter?
I have been familiar with him for quite a while. I own one or two of his records. I've got his album Cosmic Messenger from 78. And, familiar with him as a pretty intense jazz fusion guy at times. But yeah, I definitely had a period of avoiding him in the dollar bins. Like Jared was saying, he is one of those guys that you just see his records pretty much every time you go through a dollar bin. And not all of the artwork really screams out something that would be interesting. But I had not heard this album before, and when I started listening to it to get ready for this, I was surprised how different it was from stuff that I had heard, and I kind of prefer this to some of the other stuff I was more familiar with. I like the stripped down nature of this, and I like that Jean-Luc is playing a lot of the instruments himself. I like the repetition of it. I like the atmospheric nature of these songs. This is a cool album.
I want to say that coming into listening to Jean-Luc Ponty with this being my first record, I was really surprised. And, that piqued my interest in hearing more music by his. And I had a lot of people recommending the Cosmic Messenger record that you had mentioned as being like, that's the one. And so, of course, I went out and bought it. And I couldn't just find it in the dollar bin like I usually would, or like I did with this record. So I ended up spending a whole $8 on it. But but I brought it home and my wife was like, "Oh, what are we listening to?" And I was like, "Oh, this is Cosmic Messenger. This is the one that everyone was saying. This is the Jean-Luc Ponty record to listen to." And my wife and I both agreed that we didn't like it as much as this Individual Choice record.
Yeah, that was when we were I think that both albums were potentials when you were talking about coming on, and we decided to go with the Cosmic Messenger always gets recommended, so we thought we'd go with the underdog release here. And to answer your question, Jeremy, I think I more or less already detailed my background. I basically know his name in association, his work with Frank Zappa. His career is much more It was funny when I was getting into Frank Zappa and learning about all the artists who worked with him, Captain Beefheart, Jean-Luc Ponty. I knew their names in association with him and didn't really know their careers outside of his work. But it sounds like Zappa is very instrumental in his career. So we'll get to that. But I'm curious what your background was, Jeremy.
As is often the case, my background was none. My background was kind of the same as Jared's. I've seen his records in bins for years and just been like, nope, not interested, and just kept going. In particular, just like the idea of a violin-led jazz fusion or jazz rock thing just makes me like, oh, nah, I'm good on that, actually. So this was similarly let's be adventurous. Let's check this out. And yeah, it rewards in ways you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, I found it grew on me the more I listened to it.
I think Jean-Luc's history with classical music has him constructing songs that are not like hooky pop songs. They're songs that kind of build more and have like longer, more complicated melodies that are not like, they're growers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious to learn more about him. I did a little bit of just research in advance, but I really like it when Jeremy tells me the full story. So we'll get to that in a minute, but we should play another selection for our listeners first, if that didn't immerse them enough in this music. What's next on this LP?
I would like us to listen to a song called Nostalgia. This is off the second side. So if you're listening to the record, this is side 2. It's the second song on the second side. We're going to have to, once again, skip a little bit into it because it does start off pretty slow before we get to any meat, but go ahead.
All right, here's Nostalgia.
Side B, track 2.
I think that's the only track on the album that we get some guitar playing on. No, there's 2 tracks that we get some guitar on this album. There's just a couple featured musicians on this one. The guitarist is Alan Holdsworth, who is a guy I don't think we've featured on any episode before, but he's kind of a underground guitar hero type. He's in the Guitar Player Magazine Hall of Fame and also a 5-time winner of the magazine's Readers Poll, listed as one of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time by some places. And he's played with some pretty cool people. He did a couple of albums with the new Tony Williams Lifetime. Did some later Gong albums, legendary prog rock band. He also did some stuff with Soft Machine, another long-running, interesting prog jazz rock group. And then later on did an album with Level 42, as previously featured.
Holy shit, that is a rap sheet if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, for sure.
Incredible. This guy's got chops.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I have a tendency to mix him and Steve Hillage up for some reason.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's some crossover with some of the stuff that they were, involved in. So
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. That was very distinctly Alan Holdsworth playing there.
I'm curious. I got to check out more Alan Holdsworth stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he apparently joined, he joined Jean-Luc's touring band in the 70s and did like a couple shows and then was like, nah, I'm not feeling it, and just left back to England.
See you later.
He was going to find work elsewhere. It wasn't going to be a problem for him.
Yeah.
I always really appreciate the guitarists that you can tell are the, like shred speed guitarists, but when they can dial it back and do something tasteful like that.
Yeah, that was actually a really nice song, versus the one that we had, Computer Incantations, that was so rhythmically intense. I felt like this one really pulled back a lot and it just felt like relaxing. It almost felt like I could just cruise along like the Pacific Coast Highway in a convertible listening to that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was more like space rock. Everything aside from Alan's guitar playing was all performed by Jean-Luc, right? On that cut.
That's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's not too crazy to think about when you just break it down and there's just synthesizers, and at this time you're not talking about a whole band or anything. And so this is really minimal music when you think about it like that.
Yeah, Jean-Luc is listed as the producer, composer, and orchestrator of all the tracks, as well as playing almost all of the synthesizer, playing some organ, playing bass keyboard, drum machines. Yeah, he's all over this.
Well, here's a question. I don't know if anyone can answer it, but are those synthesizers sequences, or are they being actively played? Because they sound like sequences to me. A lot of something you're programming in. Yeah,
he did use a Prophet, I know, and he also is listed as rhythm computer, I saw, which I'm guessing is some type of sequencing thing. But yeah, I didn't go deep into the gear. I'm not a gearhead, and especially when it gets into synth world, I'm like, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, I know like with Dark Side of the Moon, that track On the Run with a really fast.
Oh yeah.
That's just programmed in there, and they sped it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, all I know is that I had a Casio keyboard back in high school, and there was an arpeggio button, and that's the kind of thing that would happen when I would push it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Little fact about me.
Here's a little fact. Well, you guys want to hear some facts about Jean-Luc and his life?
Absolutely.
Let's get into it. I do.
All right. Jean-Luc was born September 29th, 1942 in Avranches, France. I probably butchered the name of that. His father was a violin instructor, and his mother was a piano teacher. They started him on a rigorous daily regimen of violin practice at age 5.
Wow. How did that make you feel, Jeremy?
I was mad for Jean-Luc. That's too young.
This might be where some of that fear that I had when I saw the album covers was coming from.
It was probably in his eyes from...
Exactly. He's carrying it with him.
Yeah. I don't think he had a chance, though, with their background. That was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, so he just straight up leaves school by age 13 because he's ready to just really devote himself to violin. And at paid off because he was admitted to an insanely elite, the Conservatoire National Supérieur de Musique de Paris.
Wow.
Which is like where Ravel studied and stuff. It's like super prestigious, like 5 or 6 people get in. So this was age 16, and he graduated from there 2 years later. He had earned their highest honor, the Premier Prix, which is like the best player or whatever.
He wasn't messing around.
No.
He's like the captain of the football team. He peaked in high school.
I would bet a lot of classical enthusiasts probably would take that position, I bet.
Did I tell you about that violin solo I played in 60?
So he immediately begins playing with the Orchestre Les Marous. He's like doing this as a job, age 18, in this like super professional orchestra. While this is going on, he gets asked by some buddies of his to play in their jazz band. So his dad had showed him some clarinet back in the day. So he decides he's going to play clarinet with his buddy's jazz band to, try and meet some girls and get out on the town.
That's why I picked up the clarinet when I was a youngster, to meet girls.
Yeah. And he found he just loved jazz. He loved the free nature of it, the complex harmonies going on. It probably stood in direct contrast to his many years of extremely structured practice to play other people's music. But
he was ready to play the complex, challenging stuff, though, because of all that.
Yeah, he definitely credits, I listened to some interviews with him, and he credits that preparation for giving him like technical skill that is pretty unmatched on violin in jazz fusion or.
Mm-hmm. That's how I feel when I see some of those like free jazz guys that are just playing out their stuff, but you can tell they really know their instrument.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow, you had to like do all that formal training to then just throw it all out the window.
Yeah, you got to learn the rules before you can break them properly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's like when people talk about Picasso and you're like, well, I've only seen these, super abstract things that he's done. It's like, no, he can do anything, but he chooses to do this because he wants to break the rules.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that he made that transition from classical into jazz, because a lot of people who have extensive classical training just like can't break out of it. Like to go from that into improvised music, just they're like too trained out of that. They have to be sticking to the formula.
Yeah, it's a totally different skill set to be able to know music, read music, play music, and then also to just write music. Some of the most skilled musicians I know are really good at doing, cover bands, but they've never really written a song on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a whole different skill set. And luckily he had kind of a pretty low stakes environment to develop it, just playing these house parties. And he's doing this like while he's working at the orchestra. So he's like, doing this formal orchestra during the day and then cuts out at night to these house parties. And then he's waking up early to knock out some more Beethoven and stuff. So pretty wild time in his life. And he decides, he wants to leave classical and do his own thing. He likes making his own music. So at 22, he records his debut solo album, Jazz Long Playing, and this would have been like 1964. He establishes himself around France as this like jazz violinist who's really bringing the violin into this like bebop jazz world where there are not violins.
Yeah.
And he's really at this time trying to mimic the sounds of like John Coltrane and Miles Davis. He's trying to like get that horn sound out of a violin. So he's kind of like learning these new styles of playing. He kind of gets rid of the vibrato that classical players tend to use, and is playing these just kind of more straight ahead notes.
Yeah, if he's trying to sound like Coltrane, you don't want to have a lot of vibrato in there.
Yeah. By 1967, he was invited to perform his American debut at the Monterey Jazz Festival, where he was a big hit and was immediately signed to the World Pacific label. In 1969, World Pacific was like, hey, you should collaborate with our dude Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa heard some of Jean-Luc's stuff and was like, what do you want? Like, this guy's way too good to play with me. What do you want me to do with him? But they did end up collaborating on 1970s album King Kong, where Zappa wrote the music and Jean-Luc Ponty played it.
Yeah, and that's an album that I don't know if I've ever seen out in the bins. I would have been intrigued by someone playing the music of Frank Zappa. That's definitely one I got to track down now.
Yeah, and that's right around the time that Hot Rats also came out, and the Zappa album, the solo album, and Jean-Luc is on there.
Yeah, that was the first thing they worked together on. Frank had him come into the studio, and he was like, dang.
Sean, do you know what 15-year-old musician was also on that album playing bass on one cut on Hot Rats?
On Hot Rats? Not off the top of my head.
Peaches and Regalia. Shuggy Otis, 15 years old.
Oh, dang. What a lineup.
No way.
Yep. Yeah, some real pros on that album. That's a great album. I know people are like, Zappa's someone that people dislike a lot of his stuff because it's so not just comedic, but sometimes like ice in the heart and whatnot. But Hot Rats, I think, is a solid album and mostly instrumental. You've got one Beefheart singing one song on there, Willie the Pimp, and otherwise it's a pretty tasty album.
Yeah.
Is that the one that has Peaches and Regalia on it?
Yep, opening cut.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check out that album then, because I like that song. And Zappa, not to talk about my fears all the time, but he's another one. I've been intimidated by his catalog because I'm just overwhelmed with the sheer vastness of it. I don't even know where to start really. So yeah, I guess I could start with Hot Rats.
Hot Rats is definitely the place to start. That's my favorite Zappa. And I still vividly remember listening to it for the first time and being so intrigued by the Captain Beefheart song, Willie the Pimp, and then looking up the liner notes and be like, who's the singer on this? What a weird voice. Captain Beefheart. What kind of a name is that? Whoa, he has other albums too?
And your life changed.
Absolutely.
And his parents named him Captain Beefheart?
They decided his trajectory at that moment.
Yeah, he couldn't do anything else.
Well, Jean-Luc could do something else. Well, first he plays on Elton John's Honky Chateau in 1972, and then he emigrates to L.A. to join the Mothers of Invention in 1973. Played with Frank Zappa's band, Mothers of Invention, and he was then recruited by John McLaughlin to join Mahavishnu Orchestra, where he worked with esteemed Beatles producer George Martin on their 1974 album Apocalypse.
Yeah, and that would have been the second lineup of Mahavishnu Orchestra. The first one only lasted a few years and then kind of fell apart because the band just could not get along. But yeah, Jean-Luc stepped in and filled those shoes easily.
And Jean-Luc was actually invited to the first inception of it, but he couldn't get his emigration status in order in time, so they just moved on to someone else.
Side question here. Do you know if Jean-Luc Ponty was still in Frank Zappa's band when they played on SNL?
I'm not sure. I've seen the Beefheart SNL performance many times, but I don't think I've ever watched the Zappa SNL performance.
Yeah, unless it was in 73 or 74, that wouldn't have been Jean-Luc.
It couldn't have been. SNL starts in 75.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that answers that.
I'm looking up it does have the lineup for that night listed. That was in 78, and Jean-Luc was not in the band at that point.
Okay.
Jean-Luc, after playing with Mahavishnu Orchestra for a bit, was asked to join Return to Forever.
With Chick Corea.
Yeah, but he declined because he was ready to go solo.
I feel like that's a win for both, actually. I mean, Return to Forever is one of my favorite groups. They're just so perfect the way they are. And I'm glad that Jean-Luc, declined that offer only because it would change Return to Forever for everything.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah, that's a strong ingredient to add to your mix. So Jean-Luc signed to Atlantic Records, and he released a string of classic jazz rock, kind of proggy albums. One of his defining characteristics was having these complex orchestrations that were inspired by his work in classical music. After a lot of success with those albums, that's when Cosmic Messenger would have been. He had another album, Enigmatic Ocean, that people ride for. But those are all he described them as very democratic. The band is contributing parts and ideas to these songs. And that's where the major departure is for this album in 1983, Individual Choice, where he ditches the band and does it all himself.
At least he didn't call the album Democracy is Dead.
Fair point. It appeared that this was his 26th album, or maybe 20th studio album if you don't count the live albums. So he's just cranking out albums before this. But yeah, this is his first really truly solo endeavor, I would say. He didn't do everything himself. Obviously, he did violin, he did organ, synths, keyboard, bass, drum machines. So he's laying all the groundwork. But as we mentioned, Alan Holdsworth plays guitar on 2 cuts. George Duke, who also played with Zappa, plays a solo on a song on here.
Yeah, that's another guy that I definitely knew from Zappa originally, and then realized he had his whole thing going on himself too.
Yep. As Peter alluded to, Randy Jackson plays bass on 2 cuts on this album.
And that being, of course, Randy Jackson, that most people would know from American Idol.
Yes.
The judge.
The same Randy Jackson?
Yeah, the judge. He was on there for a long time on American. He might be the longest judge that they ever had on there.
That's a no from me. What?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and just like me, he's not to be confused with any member of the Jackson 5.
True. Oh, yeah.
No relation.
And then finally, you got Rayford Griffin playing drums and percussion on 3 different cuts on this album. So he filled in some holes with some people he'd been playing music with for a long time, but he really lets a lot of synthesizers and drum machines kind of carry most of these songs.
Well, we should get to another cut.
Let's get to another cut.
What's next?
The next track that I wanted us to listen to was Eulogy for Oscar Romero.
All right, we're going to start this cut from the top. We're going to let that intro smolder on this one. And that's side B, track 1.
what I really like about that song is just how cinematic and how open it is. The other songs that we had heard obviously had a lot of like sort of arpeggiated structure to them, very rhythmic, and this one just felt very open, and I really appreciate like listening to these kinds of songs because I think it does the opposite of what paying attention to music can do for me. It actually helps me to just sort of like unfocus my mind and just relax a little bit. It's a very soothing song for me, so that's why I chose that one.
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience right now that this album pairs very well with rain sounds. It's currently a rainy evening in Philadelphia, and the mix of that song and the rain out my window was just perfect.
Very new age.
Yes.
And that's interesting because the song "Eulogy for Oscar Romero" it's a pretty heavy subject matter. It's based on, if you're unfamiliar, Oscar Romero was an archbishop in El Salvador who was murdered by fascists for the horrible crime of advocating for basic human rights and not killing his fellow priests.
Yeah, the fascists don't like that.
They do not like that. And
are you sure we're talking about the same fascists?
I don't know. There's a lot of them out there these days.
Seem to be popping up everywhere.
Yeah. These ones were supported by the U.S. government, who provided military aid under the guise of fighting communism.
This doesn't sound familiar at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the fascists killed between 30 and 50 more people at Oscar Romero's funeral.
Whoa.
They showed up there and were throwing grenades and shooting people down.
Rude.
Yeah, it's deeply messed up. I went down some crazy rabbit holes because evidence surfaced that maybe George H.W. Bush had the CIA kill the people who did these assassinations to hide their tracks. It's, yeah. And some of it's like stuff that was litigated in the UN and in courts. So it's a wild story if you like going down that type of rabbit hole. And
I do.
That's the story behind the very soothing, free yourself piece that we just listened to.
Yeah, I knew I wasn't going to get away with without getting hurt. Like you think you're listening to something soothing, and then the story behind it is just so dark. I'm so glad that I know that now.
Yeah, I didn't find Jean-Luc talking about it, but I'm guessing he's trying to capture the more, the gentle soul of Oscar Romero instead of the things that were done to him. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
and I just wanted to say, because I was looking at the liner, or not the liner notes, but the track title again, because the track title is, I know we've said it over, I think I even said Eulogy for Oscar Romero, but it's Eulogy to Oscar Romero. So that does make sense that, I think if there's a difference between 2 and 4, that, if he's directing this at Oscar Romero, that falls more in line with the gentle soul that Oscar Romero was.
Yeah, so good tune. I just cover the rest of Jean-Luc's career real quick.
He's still alive.
He's still alive. He's still doing it.
And also currently playing in Return to Forever.
That is accurate. And currently playing with John Anderson of Yes.
Cool.
They most recently put out a single together in 2025. In the intervening years between now and when this was put out, he's played with a bunch of symphony orchestras, so he dipped back into classical here and there. He did an album of West African music in the 90s, working with polyrhythms and such.
What's his record count at this point? If he had 23 records by the time it was 1973, I wonder where he's at now.
Yeah, I didn't count. It's got to be over 50. I don't even know how many. Yeah.
That would take a while to try to come up with a
Yeah, I can't count that high. He did an album with Al Di Meola and Stanley Clarke.
Awesome.
And Lalo Schifrin as well.
My dude.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah, he's been playing shows, recording stuff, just nonstop working. I watched an interview with him from less than 2 years ago where he's talking about how busy he is doing stuff. And he's like, I thought my retirement years would be chill, and here I am.
Yeah, I mean, he's in his 80s and showing no signs of stopping. So,
Yeah, 83.
Still getting it.
I should correct myself. He's not currently playing in Return to Forever. He played in the final lineup of the group. The group ended in 2021 when Chick Corea died.
Okay.
For the record.
Yeah, sometimes those groups go on, so I wasn't sure if it just went on without Chick, but I would have been surprised. So thank you, Sean.
I actually feel like this is where I'm learning that Chick Corea is dead.
Same, actually.
Well, Lalo Schifrin is pretty recently passed away too.
Yeah.
I knew about him, but I think I missed the news on Chick Corea.
Well,
and
2021, 2021, so it was very easy to miss things like that.
Yeah, I feel like
frame.
things were happening around then. I'm not really sure what.
I can't remember what it was, but I feel like there was a lot going on. Yeah.
Well, Sean, did you happen to pair up some other albums with rain sounds outside your window to put together some recommended similar albums?
Yeah, all of today's recommendations are pair beautifully with the sounds of rain.
In Philly specifically, though.
Yeah, Philadelphia rain. All right, I got 4 of them, so let me just dive right in on this. First up, Jerry Goodman, recommending his 1985 album On the Future of Aviation. For those not familiar with the name, he was a member of the Chicago group The Flock, who were kind of a less popular jazz rock group similar to the band Chicago. Then after that, he was on the original lineup of Mahavishnu Orchestra. So he was Jean-Luc's replacement when they couldn't get him for the first couple years of the group. But then later on, like in the mid-'80s, he started transitioning from jazz fusion more into the new age genre. So this album is a good combination of influences and similar background to what we got going on with Jean-Luc.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like a kind of parallel release.
Yes. Also a violinist, I should say. So it's, yeah, very similar. Next up, another jazz fusion violin legend, little more underappreciated though, Shankar. His 1984 album Vision from ECM Records. He was a Indian violinist famous for playing an electric double violin. That's 2 violin necks fused together with one body. It's pretty wild looking if you want to look that up.
Nice.
Also a very similar path to Jean-Luc. He was in the group Shakti with John McLaughlin. He also played with Frank Zappa, Archie Shepp, Talking Heads, Peter Gabriel, and he's featured on Jonathan Davis's solo album, the Jonathan Davis of Korn.
Yes.
Whoa, that is cool.
Yeah, quite the career. Yeah, and his ECM stuff is amazing. Some of the best ECM records you can possibly find. It's a really cool combination of Indian classical and jazz fusion, and yeah, there's not a lot of stuff like it. Highly recommended.
I will always take a chance on ECM. When I see ECM, I'm usually at least interested in learning more about it. And I picked up a sampler from probably the mid 80s that it has about 12 of their artists on it. And Shankar is one of them. And that is a standout track on that ECM sampler. So I do think that you're right to compare these two.
Yeah. I also love collecting ECM because it's almost always in near mint condition. Like all the people that were buying that stuff took very good care of it.
People don't really listen to it.
Well, they took care of their stuff. You know, these are audiophiles buying this
True.
stuff. They weren't party records.
Does that mean electric classical music?
You know, I've never looked it up, so sure.
Is that a label? ECM?
Yeah, ECM.
Okay, yeah, ECM is the label. I don't know what it stands for though.
If only it could be looked up.
The way you were referring to it, I wasn't sure if it was a label or a genre.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a label, but it kind of like has a specific genre sound associated with it. It's kind of it's jazz fusion, but it leans more into classical territory than some of the more like funky, shreddy jazz fusion stuff. So it's a highly respected label from that time period.
As the smartest person on this podcast, I will inform you all that ECM is edition of contemporary music.
Oh.
As the person that can see Jeremy, I will inform everyone that he looked it up on his phone.
Busted.
All right, 2 more recommendations. Next up, Daniel Kobialka, who's a legendary New Age musician. I'm recommending his 1983 classic Path of Joy on his self-owned label Lee Sem Enterprises. Daniel was a classical violinist who also worked frequently in the New Age genre, recorded several albums with the great Stephen Halpern, and one of the tracks off the album Path of Joy, Blue Spirals, was featured on Light in the Attic's incredible I Am the Center New Age box set.
Nice.
Last recommendation, the artist slash group known as Yazkaz. They were a Japanese group recommending their 1985 album Egg of Piranha on Gramavision Records. Yazkaz was a member of pioneering Japanese fusion jazz group Prism, and then his solo full band albums are just this incredibly unique combination of sounds. There's electronic, tribal, ambient, classical, new age, prog, jazz, and this just all blends together to this incredible kind of haunted masterpiece of an album. So check that group out.
I'm very intrigued. I know nothing of this.
I'm intrigued by all of these. Yeah, thanks, Sean.
It's spelled YAS-KAZ, by the way.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like something that would be expensive.
Yeah.
And yet it's not, or at least that album.
One album I got thinking about doing, or one artist I got thinking about doing the research for this was Papa John Creech that we had talked about.
Sure.
Yeah, violinist.
Yeah, who kind of came from the other direction of being more of a fiddle player who brought that to jazz rock.
Yeah, and then the psychedelic San Francisco scene.
Yeah. So this was kind of coming from the opposite direction, coming from classical into that world. So if you like the general narrative, check out our Papa John Creech episode.
Papa John Creech, I'm in trouble.
You might get to hear Peter make that joke.
Well, thank you, Sean.
Mhm.
That's some you did well. We should probably remind our listeners that you can support the program over on Patreon, patreon.com/I'd buy that podcast. We're always recording every month. We're recording a new bonus episode. Most recently, we did a 12-inch for the disco classic Murphy's Law by Sherry.
Yep.
Yes, I bought that 12-inch because I love it. I love that song.
Nice. Well, get on the Patreon. You can hear the whole backstory of that very interesting one-hit wonder group, and actually comes from a whole family of one-hit wonder artists. It was cool to research that one.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, yeah, check us out over on patreon.com/I'd buy that podcast. Jared, we told people a little bit about what you do, but where can they find you talking about dollar records when you're not talking about them with us?
Yeah, I would say that the first place to look if you have Instagram is to go to $_day_records. That's my handle there. I say Instagram first because that's primarily where I post things first. And I also have a TikTok and I also have a YouTube page, but I kind of neglect those as much as I just am more of an Instagram user. So on that page is where you'll find me going into, I'll be doing song samplers of the records that I purchased and a little bit of a deep dive. I mean, what I do is a very miniature version of what you guys do on this podcast. But lately I've been trying to go a little bit deeper and actually make some connections between the artists and the producers and telling some stories that would really sort of pique people's interest beyond just listening to the songs and judging something based on the way it sounds. So I've been having a lot of fun with it and been seeing a lot of growth on it. And I encourage people to, I always end every post by saying, tell me what I missed, because I want people to engage with the content. And I learn a lot from the people that do that. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I was going to say, not only do you have really cool, interesting videos and great selections, but you've achieved a very rare thing on the internet of having a generally pretty positive comment section on all these videos. Like, people are really into it and responding and adding bits of information and other songs they like by that artist. It's a good time.
Yeah, every once in a while I get a couple knuckleheads that just say something stupid, but for the most part, everyone is really cool. I feel like I've captivated a very nice and genuine audience of music fans, and so I'm just thrilled with the way things are going.
Yeah, if you don't get a couple knuckleheads, you're doing something wrong.
They're fun. They're fun.
Well, we should thank you for a little while back shouting out "I'd buy that for $1" when you covered the Masakila album.
Well, I have to thank you, because I wouldn't have even really probably come across that record as soon as I did if it weren't for your podcast. That's where I learned about it, so I had to shout you out.
Well, we have to shout out iAlive for bringing it to our podcast.
Yeah, shout outs all around for days. Yeah, it's a really cool page. I definitely recommend people check that out. And this is perfect. Thank you for joining us to talk about Jean-Luc Ponty.
Oh, it's been great. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me.
Indeed. And we're going to go out on individual choice.
The title cut.
The title cut. This title cut included a music video I saw that was airing on MTV very early on MTV's existence.
Yeah, this would have been within the first couple of years of MTV.
Yeah. And it was shot by Louis Schwartzberg. And it's like a bunch of time-lapse footage of cities. He shot it in New York, Chicago, Seattle.
I could see the music on this album fitting well with like the time-lapse stuff in the Philip Glass stuff in the Koyaanisqatsi films.
Oh yeah.
I could see this also working in that kind of setting. I didn't see that video though, so
yeah, it's pretty cool. Check it out. It's out on the YouTubes, if you've heard of YouTubes.
with the S at the end, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else left to say, or shall we get out of here?
Let's get out of here, Peter.
Okay. Thank you for listening to I'd Buy That for $1. I'm co-host Peter Cook.
I'm co-host Jeremy.
I'm co-host Sean Hartman.
And I'm Jared Teeley.
Thanks for coming on, Jared.
Thanks for having me.
Individual choice.